arising out of the pandemic. The third topic was emerging views from the strategies implemented due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the specific interventions which we have undertaken to ensure that we address issues around the economy. Number 4, the impact of COVID-19 in transforming the business world, as well as the emerging needs and interventions, and of course how, as a country, we are strategizing to take advantage of the opportunities which have arisen. Because much as COVID-19 is a challenge, there are definite opportunities that have come up as a result of the pandemic. Number 5, the benefits and impact of sector stimulus packages from the government of Uganda. Number 6, the emerging innovations, especially around industrialization and manufacturing, which have emerged or which have come up as a result of the COVID-19 interventions, which have resulted in the promotion of innovation and job creation. Then last but not least, the extent to which the interventions we have undertaken to address the pandemic have aided, the extent to which they have aided industrial recovery. And then, of course, we discussed, what has worked and what has not worked. The whole essence, of course, of all these discussions is to ensure that we set the ground for implementation of the budget come July 1st, 2021. Therefore, today's discussions will focus on the tax policy issues as well as the avenues for revenue generation and how tax policy is going to aid economic recovery. So we believe that this is a very important topic in which every Ugandan, in the public and the private sector, should take interest, because it touches on the core of the things that will be done in the coming financial year. I therefore once again call upon you, fellow Ugandans, to listen attentively and provide constructive feedback in these discussions for better implementation of the government programs. Before I conclude, I want to thank the media houses which have partnered with us to ensure that this message or this dialogue reaches every corner of the country. I also want to thank our partners under the Budget Transparency Initiative, and these are largely Uganda Revenue Authority, the Central Bank, Bank of Uganda, the CS Bank, which is a civil society organization, Budget Advocacy Group, ACCORD, those are the Advocates Coalition for Development and Environment, as well as CIATINI, for being key partners in ensuring that the budget is opened up, but also providing an avenue for the public to understand the budget, but also participate both in its formulation and also in its execution, and of course monitoring. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenneth Mugambe. Mr. Kenneth Mugambe is the Director Budget, Minister of Finance, for your opening remarks. Well, today is going to be a discussion around the tax policy, just like Mr. Mugambe has detailed in his opening remarks. So I would like to invite Mrs. Patience Tumusime Rubagumya, who is the Commissioner Legal Services and Board Affairs, to come and also give her remarks. You're very welcome, Patience. Let's give her some love, good people.
Thank you so much, Solomon, for that. The Director Budget, Director Economic Affairs, the Ministry of Finance, the heads of various institutions of government, civil society representatives, our partners, the media, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning to you all. My name, like Solomon has said, is Patience Tumusime Rubagumya. I'm the Commissioner for Legal Services, Uganda Revenue Authority. I am representing the Commissioner General, URA, who is not able to be here with us, but he is following the proceedings online. My topic today, or what we are going to start off the discussion, like the director has said, is tax policy measures. So I'm going to start us off by looking at the different avenues that we have that the URA has put in place, or how we intend to collect the revenue or the target that the Ministry of Finance has given to the URA. So I'm just giving you a brief of some of the things that we are looking at, and then my colleagues who are part of the panel will also give more details. Like we all know, URA is supposed to collect 20.8 trillion, and that is from tax revenue, and about 1.6 trillion from non-tax revenue. So the question then that is on everybody's mind is that we are in the COVID pandemic. Where is this money going to come from? How is the URA going to finance, or how is the URA going to go about its business in trying to mobilize the revenue that we need for the development of our country? But as the URA, we are up to a task, and we believe that indeed we are going to collect this money. The increased collections are going to majorly come from three main streams. One, there has to be an improvement, of course, in the level of economic activity. When there's growth in the economy, then resultantly you will have increased revenue collections. But then, of course, like we all know, that to some extent will be affected by the effects of COVID. But the second one, which is more critical, is increased efficiency in tax collection. How is the URA going to organize itself to be able to collect this revenue administratively? From the provisions that we have in the laws, but even administratively, what measures are we put in place to be able to collect this revenue? And that goes into the heart of increasing voluntary compliance. Yes, we have enforcement measures that we have used over time within the URA. There are a number of instruments that we have, but the heart of where this collection should come from is through voluntary compliance. So we are going to have a lot of measures that are aimed at ensuring that our taxpayers indeed are able to comply voluntarily on their own without the use of enforcement from the URA, and which enforcement as well within this financial year has been scaled down to some extent. You will agree with me that the way we used to collect taxes in the past, or the use of the different enforcement instruments that we have scaled down on that, largely because we are cognizant of the fact of the effect that COVID has had on the businesses. So we have also tried to see how best we can come in and support our taxpayers to be able to comply with their obligations. And then, of course, the last hurdle is the tax policy measures, which my colleagues are going to give in detail. So those are the main three key areas where we expect to get the additional revenue that we are looking at in terms of the financial year. But as the URA, I will start off, we are up to a new mandate. We have repositioned ourselves. As you can see, we have a new vision, we have a new mission, and we also have new values. I don't see the values. The values, yes, it is integrity, it is a patriotism, and a professionalism. We call it in URA the PIP. But ultimately, what we are looking at in repositioning ourselves to be able to deliver on this mandate is to deliver Uganda to economic independence. Now that might seem a long stretch, Director Budget. You might be wondering, have these people gone mad? How are they going to deliver that? But within the URA, we believe that every journey starts and it must be accomplished. Once you believe in the vision, then you'll be able to put in place measures that can work towards that goal. So that is our vision, really, that ultimately we want to see our country being economically independent. It is not a simple journey, but it is a journey that we believe that once we work with everybody, then we will be able to achieve that mandate. And I'll take you through some of the areas indeed that we are looking at to be able to deliver on that. So specifically, what are we looking at in terms of the next financial year, both the short term and the medium term? Process management is very key. For the processes, that is always our starting point. We must be able to deliver our services, first of all, in a very simple manner that is consistent, but then also have reduced compliance in terms of the costs. And then, of course, this ultimately leads to service delivery. So we are looking at a number of areas on how we can simplify the processes that we have within the URA to be able to deliver and make sure that our taxpayers are able to comply with their obligations within the respective tax laws. The next one is a focus on the tax areas, and this will come through from my colleagues that will be speaking on later. We have a large portfolio of tax areas that have built over time. But then with that now, we have put in place measures of how we can effectively be able to collect from these taxpayers that owe us arrears over the period of time. The third measure is interface with the other government systems. We have gone a long way, but we also have some other agencies really where our systems are not talking. So interface government systems, we are having a number of discussions with different agencies to be able to make sure that our systems, we are able to pick information that is within the different MDAs that we can use for our tax purposes. Then we have also continued to use smart technology. Here we have talked about IFRIS, we have talked about DTS, so I will not belabor so much on that. But these are two key initiatives that we believe are going to give us a lot of leverage in terms of getting information real time and being able to find ways of how we can move along with our taxpayers in real time and be able to improve the collections. The DTS, we have moved a long way with the manufacturers, and I'm glad because at the start it was not easy. But where, as I speak now, we have the manufacturers on board, and that is going on well. IFRIS, yes, a few issues here and there, but also that is on course, and we believe that indeed in the next financial year, we should be able to realize the full benefits of the two systems. But we also have internally other systems that we are working on. One is our debt management. Like I said, debt, when you're talking about revenue, you always have debt. So you must have an efficient way of how this is going to be done. So we are automating that process as well to make sure that all these debts are monitored online. The next measure under process management we are looking at is having a closer look at the licensing regime for the clearing agents and the tax agents for domestic purposes. And why is this very key? Tax agents or the clearing agents are RFS. For instance, in customs, you cannot interface with us without a clearing agent. But we have seen many cases where these clearing agents themselves indeed are at the heart of fleecing the taxpayers, or you have what we call the quack agents. So we are having a strict measure of having sure that everybody who gets onto our list as a tax agent or a clearing agent indeed has gone through a certain way of how we are measuring them and making sure that once you are licensed, then we are free, or you are sure that these are the people that indeed should be able to transact business with you. So that whole regime has also been in the coming financial year. It is going to be strengthened, and we should be able to have better relationships with our agents who are transacting on behalf of the taxpayers. Lastly, a detection of smugglers using scanners. Scanners, yes, we have a number of them almost at all the borders, but also in the next financial year, we are adding on the number of scanners to be able to have these the scanning methods without having to rely on the staff all the time to be able to go through the goods that are coming in. So that is another key focus that we have that we believe is going to help us, especially for our international trade taxes. The next area that the URA is looking at, which we believe is going to give us revenue, is data analysis. Data analysis arising from the fact that now with the systems that we have, with the technology that we have, there's a lot of data that we have within our different systems. So we should be able to use or to build capacity within the URA to be able to analyze that data for tax purposes. And that all the information that we have, really, every decision that is made by the URA is actually based on data. So there's a lot of focus on that. We are training staff to make sure that indeed the information that we have in the systems is put to use. The next one, like I said, is revamping the processes and making them simpler. So within domestic taxes, we have the e-tax, which has its own issues right now. It is a bit complex, and we've got feedback, but that whole system now is going to be revamped. So now the system that we are going to roll out is going to be much easier, more friendly, but it is all aimed at making sure that you reduce the compliance costs, but then also make it easy for taxpayers to comply with their different obligations. And then, of course, we have the science function or forensics. I'm sure a number of our taxpayers have also had some of their products being brought before the lab. But this is all also aimed at making sure that whatever decision is made is actually based on science, or that there is factual evidence as to why we are classifying products in a different way. And then, of course, we'll continue with the input-output ratios that we use for the science laboratory. On the softer side, the other big area that we are going to focus on in URA is tax education. Tax education, I cannot overemphasize it. It is feedback that we have received over time that we have laws that are very complex. And my supervisors in the Ministry of Finance know that very well. But it is time we need to see how, indeed, we can simplify these obligations within the tax laws. It is feedback that we have also got that our tax education largely focuses on taxpayers that are within the center. So the question has always been, how about the taxpayer who is actually out of Kampala? What measures are you having? So on that, we have got a program now for that is elaborate on our taxpayer education. The major thing, we also bring on board a mobile tax office. So this is going to be, we are getting buses, and these buses will be moving really from one area to another. But it's all aimed at ensuring that every taxpayer, wherever you are, the URA is able to reach you and be able to sensitize you on what your obligations are. I know, Madam Nalunga, the last time I think I heard you mention that and said it is an area that URA must focus on. So I would like to assure you, Madam, that that is on top of our priority. The next financial year, you should be able to see us in different areas, different fora, but then also having targeted tax education. Because it is, yes, you might call here, yes, we are in a webinar or we are on TV, but not everybody is actually watching us. So we are looking at different sectors and saying, what is the best strategy? How can you reach people who are in LTO? How do you reach somebody that is out there in the field? But how do you actually also make sure that maybe even the governments, the PSOs, are able to be sensitized? So that is the nature of the program that we are having, and we believe that this should go a long way in getting everybody on board, in at least, first of all, understanding what their obligations are and enabling them to comply. The other element about tax education is the school outreach. We want to build a culture of a civic duty. People need to see why they pay their taxes right from a young age. And we believe that the schools are a very good starting point. So we have these programs with the schools where we will be able to have different programs running with them, having the tax debate, involving our young children in appreciating why tax is very important for government and why indeed they should grow up with that mind of having to know that they need to support their country in terms of paying taxes. The next area that we'll look at in terms of mobilizing revenue is stakeholder engagements. Now that is very key if you're in the circles of tax education or in the circles of wanting to raise revenues. Because as the URA, there's so much you can do, but you need different stakeholders. And that is why the focus, for instance, now is that we involve a lot of private sector. We have a lot of discussion with civil society. Because with the different stakeholders, you're able to know what their needs are, you're able to see what the challenges are, and then you target your programs towards ensuring that indeed you're making an impact on that. So we also have a whole strategy that is looking at the different stakeholders that we have, both local and international, and then of course the sister agencies within the region. Within the East African region, we have a very good working relationship, but this is very key because it helps us learn what is happening in the other areas, but it also gives us focus on how we are doing in relation to our sister agencies. And then, of course, the political leaders. We need our leaders, we need the cultural leaders, we need the associations. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about the associations. A few years ago, we realized that it is easier to penetrate a sector when they are actually under an umbrella association. So you will have discussions with these associations, you work through them. Then once you have the discussions, then you are able to reach their members. We found that very effective, and it is something that we are going to continue with, expanding on the network of the associations that we have within the URA. But this is all aimed at ensuring that we have everybody on board and that all these association leaders are our partners in terms of sensitizing or helping us to reach the members that we can ably discuss with. I will also talk about a little bit more about voluntary disclosure. Like I said, voluntary compliance is very key, and we pride ourselves in having a number or growing the number of taxpayers who are complying with their obligations voluntarily. So we're running a campaign that is also based in the provisions of the law, that if you come up and voluntarily disclose, then your penalties will actually be waived. So I would like to call upon the public to continue using that module as well, to be able to do self-checks and then come up and declare. If you go onto our website, there are guidelines on how that can be done. But it is in the spirit of encouraging taxpayers to have a self-check and then be able to come out voluntarily. And then, of course, the benefit is that your penalties will be waived. So we'd like to encourage our partners, our taxpayers, to utilize that avenue as well. The next area where we have realized revenue in the last few months is the use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. And this refers mainly to the courts of law. Cases that have been filed in the Tax Appeals Tribunal or cases that have been filed in the High Court. We are calling upon our taxpayers because we've noticed that these cases, of course, they'll go through the legal mechanism. But many times it is a very lengthy process. You will start from the Tax Appeals Tribunal, and then if somebody is dissatisfied, you appeal to the High Court, and possibly even some of these cases end up before the Supreme Court. Now that is a spell of almost about 10 years. So you will have your money stuck within the court systems, both for the taxpayer, but even government revenue, because you're not able to resolve that. So we are calling upon taxpayers, we're encouraging a way where we are able to work together. We have a discussion around the ADR or mediation sessions and be able to agree on how the dispute can be resolved. And in the last year, we have collected almost about 250 billion just from that avenue. So it is something that we're encouraging taxpayers to utilize. It is a win-win solution really for both the taxpayer and for the URA and government as a whole. We'll continue using research. Research is very key and innovation. Where we are going, you cannot afford to put research on the side. A lot of new hurdles are coming through. A lot of ways of doing business are coming through. So you must have a team. We have a dedicated team that is looking at these new avenues that are coming through to see how best we can use that. First of all, with proposals for amendment of the law, but then also the areas that we need to focus on which are growing that might not be in our network. So research is very key. That will also help us in terms of expanding the tax base, but also looking at the regime that we operate to be able to resolve some of these issues. International trade, yes, a lot is also going on as well. It is a lot of simplifying the systems, using a lot of online processes to be able to handle. But then also what is key, what I can point out, is the use of a risk management. It is no longer about running after smugglers. No, you must be able to intelligently find ways of how you can detect and then also be able to look at areas that you need to focus on. So we are strengthening the risk management under customs to be able to raise flags on the areas that we need. But we're also continuously or actively involved in the discussions in the World Customs Organization. Now that is very key because as an institution that is growing, you must be able to know what is happening on the global scene to help you come up